I mean, and given everything that's gone on over the past year and a half, don't you think it's appropriate that Washington regulate the hell out of Wall Street?
Well, I think, you know,
In the banking business?
one of the things you have to remember that among the two most regulated industries in the United States is the banking industry and the brokerage industry.
So was there not enough?
The result
Too much
of that regulation is that you have the crisis you have now. In terms of the brokerage industry, all 5 major companies that were regulated basically have disappeared as a regulated body by the SEC. And the banking system, which is in such enormous trouble, was regulated by numerous regulators. So regulation per se obviously is not a solution, because these were the institutions that were regulated and got in trouble.
You could see the debate club would have fun with that. Do you agree with that, Bruce? That it's the fault of regulators?
No. Well, I think the problem...
I'd like to finish this, okay? Because I think that was an unfair shot.
I jumped in. My bad.
And not to take Bruce's time on
no,
this.
No, I was happy to jump on it.
That you will have more regulation, in large part because not everyone in the system was regulated. And so when you have some people, some groups, industries regulated in finance, and others not regulated, and some securities like credit default swaps with $60 trillion of obligation, no one even knows where they are. You can't have a sensible system with some organizations in the net and others not in the net. So I'm not trying to make an argument against regulation, but regulation, the way we do it, clearly doesn't work correctly. Just as an empiricist, you wouldn't have had all these messes if things were done in a more sensible way. So I think you're going to have a much more principles-based regulatory system, the kind of endless compliance that you have through the SEC and certain of the regulatory bodies, with everyone in compliance going bankrupt. There is something wrong with that type of regulatory system, obviously.
Yeah, but the problem here is that we've got to pierce the veneer that this is all a rational system. It's a political system. And what I mean by that is you have congressmen running hearings about how we need more regulation, and at the same time you have people who were urging the same subprime loans that people are complaining about. And that's okay as a policy, but just be consistent. On regulation, the real difficulty was not so much that there wasn't regulation or too much regulation, or it was that there was misregulation. That is, it wasn't competently regulated for 2 reasons. One is just generally this risk issue, and we'll go about it talking more generally about the nature of risk and how people thought about risk, the rating agencies, et cetera. But on the regulatory side, with all that deep control at the banking system, how do you land up with banks putting such a disproportionate set of their assets in particular areas, and how do you not get the gradual mark to market, if you would, of those assets before they all balloon up and you have this huge amount? Or if we need the deleveraging, then certainly what should the bank regulators, the Fed, have been doing? What was the appropriate amount of leverage to begin with? So you had all those laws in place, you had all those capabilities, you had some confusion of patterns, but no one was saying, hey, here's what we need in terms of risk, and certainly the SEC didn't do that with brokerage companies. If you look at the brokerage companies, they all doubled down on this stuff. It was a money printing machine. Of course, you've got to ignore risk in the money printing